Okay, here we go. All right, I am back out in the courtyard, right, where I can sort of see all of the other places. This is sort of, I get the sense that this is kind of a dream space. You know, obviously there's this like transition between inside the room where I've got the artist table, and then the artist table sort of comes with me into this new space. And Nick suggests that he's kind of imagining what the lives of other people are like, which is neat. I like that. I like that suggestion that this is him trying to get outside of his own head, but he doesn't do it by actually going and interacting with people. He does it by like sitting in his apartment and imagining what other people are like. This also weirds me out a little bit. I've never mentioned this before to the devs when I played the game, but I don't know where any of them lived when they were in LA. I don't know like if they modeled this courtyard after a real place. But I have a good friend that I work with who lives in an apartment complex that has a courtyard just like this, and every time I'm in this space in the game, I think that like I'm there visiting her apartment, which is weird. I think that these messages are the same. John Liu, yes. So these are the same messages they were last time. They always look so happy together. Oh, interesting. I know the rights. I wonder if Madison and I looked happy. And obviously they weren't perfectly happy. There's a suggestion of infidelity. There's a lot of tension in their relationship. Or at least Nick imagines these things. Nick imagines that the Wrights have tension in their relationship. They had grown comfortable, their roots intertwined. You're leaving me, he said. She hadn't meant to fall in love with someone else. What does anyone know about love anyway? I can't go further. So I think that these things are unlocking linearly. And that was the first one. Yeah, here's another one. That was the first one that I could go into. Looked like a little bit of an animation bug. And the fact that there's another door in there suggests to me that there's maybe more to do in there, but I'm going to have to wait to unlock it. Oh, this is another one that's pretty good. This is visually a really, really interesting one that I'm gonna have to sort of keep up with. So drip, drip, drip. It doesn't wait for me. Oh, you guys don't, you might see it, but you don't get the same sense that I do of how heavy these controls are compared to the normal controls of Nick walking around the apartment complex. So what's going on here? The inertia is turned way up, and the max speed is turned way down. And so as I move through this space, I kind of glide a little bit, but I can't move very fast. And it feels super heavy. There's some fisheye going on that I didn't notice right away, but is super eerie. I find that effect like really creepy. Alright, I'm gonna come in here. Drip, drip, drip. He had been a bit anxious about moving so far away from home. Road tripping across the country with his older sister had been both fun and exhilarating, something like that. Still, he was touched she had taken the time to make the trip with him. Drip. Drip written on the walls, drip written sort of in the space. I just think it's such a cool effect. And then of course, like, this seems to be at least somewhat built around objects that are associated with water. So there's a bathroom, there's a bathtub, there's this sink. You notice how like bright the sink is. It's white compared to everything else. It's this very, very dark kind of gray. So this is the exact same thing that we saw before in order to call attention to an object, to a part of the level. But instead of using saturation, it's using value. It's using the intensity of the brightness. No, wait, value is color, right? Am I talking about brightness? I don't know. It's something. It's using a different sort of variable. That this is, you know, from back here. This is a weenie, right? That's what we would call this. This is something that calls you, that leads you to a different space, or gives you a goal in terms of like the space that you should move through. I feel like I'm disappearing. God, there's also, so the visual effect of the reflection in the sink is really neat, but there's also, when I stop moving, there's quite a lot of sway on the camera, and even when I just move around, like I was talking about, the moving the character feels different. Just moving the camera, just looking around feels significantly different. Jim stared at his hands, his knuckles white as they desperately clung to the coffee cup, the tea in it gone, cold over the hours he had spent sitting on his living room floor. He half expected to see his fingers fading away, like a ghost. A wraith. Dripping like a wraith. And there's a connection between that wraith and the drips. His body shuddered, trembled, shrank. He closed his eyes. Empty apartment. Drip. Drip. Somewhere in the space, his sink dripped, a sound that plagued him beyond irritation. Drip. It's interesting, actually, that the dripping has stopped. It seems instead to feed the empty feeling. Drip. I wonder if that's meant to evoke more of a sense of emptiness, because now even the dripping is gone. We talk about it, and I see it visually, drip, 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 but I don't hear it anymore. I actually I miss it. I miss that sound. He bowed his head until it rested on the smooth mouth of the mug, the rest of his body curling up. Oh, God, this is... He was dimly aware of the city beyond his apartment and of the people that filled it. Not his city, not his people. He curled further into himself. It's so sad. It's such a, like I can very much relate to that kind of sense of depression, of just not wanting to get up, to just like staring into a cup of coffee. Alright, so the first thing that I notice here, aside from like how different it feels to move the mouse around, is how the color has changed, right? Like it used to be very, very blue. It used to be a soft, cool color palette, and now it's a soft, warm color palette. It feels very different. And I can see the courtyard outside. Our old vacation photos are still on there. We always meant to go through them together, but we never made the time on this laptop, on this desktop computer. So now I've got that first comic panel. I wonder if I have more comic panels out here. Yeah, I got this one that's done. Good job, Nick. Way to keep working. The pillows still smell like her. Oh, that's fucking awful. Sorry. Okay. I'm okay. That one hit me a little hard. Here we go. Our old... Oh, no. That's... I saw that one. Old vacation photos. Empty empty bed. Hot chocolate and jigsaw puzzles. I always noticed when she chewed her lip, wrestling together patches of sky. That's... So, okay. Let me just... I really like the writing. I think the writing here is really solid. I think they put a lot of effort into it. And the pillows still smell like her. That's very simple. It's the kind of, like, the kind of thing that, I don't know. It's the kind of thing that can just get to you. And I think it's going to be different for each person. But the game seems to be filled with these very short little, like these buttons, right? And everybody's got buttons, and the game is pushing a lot of buttons. And so I think there's a good chance that one of the buttons that it pushes is going to be one of yours. This, as somebody who, like, my mom is way into jigsaw puzzles, so every time we get together for a holiday, we do jigsaw puzzles. Just the poetry of wrestling together patches of sky. I find that enormously evocative, and it's not specific to, like, relationships or to, like, even Madison, but wrestling together patches of sky. I mean, it gives me a sense of who Nick is, that he thinks about things in those terms, which is sort of beautiful and also overwrought, right? Like, I'm a little bit stunned by how poetic I find that, but it's also like, it's not the sort of thing that you think to yourself when you're by yourself just thinking about stuff. It's a very flowery way of like having an inner monologue. She didn't like Thai food at first. Now our fridge, my fridge, is filled with leftovers from the smiling banana leaf. Oh, God. The smiling banana leaf. It's one of our favorite restaurants. I can't count how many times we went there together. So there's a connection between the written narrative and these comic panels. It's just not always a visual connection. Sometimes it is, and sometimes it isn't, I think. So it doesn't always come across right away. Wait, wasn't there something here? Oh no, there's something over there. Candles. I remember waiting and watching the candle burn down. It was the first time she had ever flat out forgotten about a date. Forgotten about me. Okay, alright. She used to send me texts whenever she was working late, little notes throughout the night. She didn't the last few months, even though she almost always worked late. Maybe I should have known. This kind of like, there's such a sense of who he is and how this went. Like I have such a strong sense of what those months were like. And the way that you feel now, that Nick feels now, second guessing himself every step of the way. Right, empty. I'm missing. Oh no, I'm done. I found all the things. Smiling banana leaf. We were meeting at our favorite restaurant, a cozy Thai place, right around the corner. I'd brought Madison there on one of our early dates, and despite her initial misgivings, it had become a favorite date night spot. We had a routine. I ordered the pad thai, she the yellow curry. We'd share the entrees and split a bowl of mango sticky rice for dessert. I'd been waiting for over half an hour. Where was Madison? She was the perpetually early type. She always sent a text if she was running late. I checked my phone again. Still no response to my text. Nick, if you aren't here soon, I'm going to... Oh, Nick writing. If you aren't here soon, I'm going to eat everything without you. Smiley face. ETA? God, the art of writing texts is so... Like, writing texts, especially in relationships. That carefully placed smiley face. That, like, casual ETA question mark. I'm in, like, shades of metadating, right? Calls went straight to voicemail. Car accident? My stomach rumbled? I actually thought that was going to be stomach, like, turmoil, like thinking about a car accident, but it sounds hungry. Sheepishly, deflected the waiter who came... I deflected the waiter. Sorry, at this resolution, I'm having a little bit of trouble reading this text. Sheepishly, I deflected the waiter who came by to refill our 2 glasses of water. I waited for another half hour before leaving. She texted me later, just a short, I'm really sorry. We had a client emergency, be home in an hour. I didn't respond. I wonder if Jim's still single. I don't remember what that's like anymore. So there is some new text that appears. Drip, drip, drip. I wonder if he's still single. I don't remember what that's like anymore. God, I don't remember what that's like anymore. After 4 years of dating someone, being single and not being comfortable with that, like not remembering what it means to be single. Thinking about that, like, super depressing drip, drip, drip scene as Nick imagining what it's like for Jim to be single, that's super sad. Nick, fuck, man, get out. Do something. Don't... Oh my god. Alright. I don't know if I click... Oh! Let me see if it does any state saving if I open it back up. So I was warned that some of the scenes might be a little buggy. Yeah. This is going back to the beginning. Let me just look. I think that might have been the last vignette that's in the... How about this? Okay, this still doesn't seem to be doing anything. I'm not sure if I'm missing something here. W doesn't seem to do anything. Oh! I am so wrong! Okay, so note to developers, I might want a little bit more immediate feedback on the W key. All right, because again, there's a sense of inertia, and I think that sense of inertia is really important to the game, and sort of varying it is really important to how it feels to go through this sort of like molasses sense of slowness. But I thought that I was just not moving. William, I remember driving. And the Sierras, and our cabin. Our last honeymoon. Our last honeymoon. I miss it. Our last honeymoon just says volumes, doesn't it? Our cabin stood here. I cried for weeks. I painted for weeks. God, this is gorgeous. This is so beautiful. And that abrupt transition felt really, really good. This is, just for a little bit of context, I played at least earlier versions of those first two vignettes. I don't think I've ever played a version of this vignette. You left me in the winter. I think this is gorgeous. Our tree froze. Like black veins under your pale skin on your quiet heart. Text like branches. Like eyeliner smeared on my cheeks, splattered onto wet paint. Like my hair when we last fought, when it was still black. Like cracks on the bathroom mirror on your chapped lips. It's the little things, William. The lake by the cabin. Did you have to leave? I haven't been alone in 60 years. You taught me how to fish here. Oh, and midnight swimming. This was our place. We floated like ducks for hours. The boat has kind of a, like, a rhythm to its movement, even if I just hold down the button, that is really, really good. It's really good. It's really good how these different modes of movement feel different. You left. Why? Come back, William. Oh my god. Oh, Jesus Christ, guys. Oh, fuck. William J. Tipton. Okay, alright. It used to be my apartment, then it became ours. I'm not sure it will ever be mine again. Chinese takeout, sitcoms, happy days. I'm still finding her bobby pins in here. I found her bobby pins either. I didn't say anything. The more important the meeting, the more bobby pins she'd use. The first time I came in here, I remember seeing the bobby pins, and I didn't think anything of it. Of course, now that feels so significant. Chinese takeout, sitcoms, happy days. Madison hated when I left clothing lying around. She always hummed while she did the dishes. Her idea of fancy cooking was pasta, pasta, and more pasta. This colander was her best friend in the kitchen. Madison, a girl after my own heart. She thought these salt and pepper shakers were cute. They were one of the first things we bought for our apartment. Oh god, that is brutal. Ah. Sorry, that deserved more commentary. When we get to it, we can look at it. But just the framing of that scene and the character's expression is really well done. From our favorite coffee shop, I started displaying comics there recently. I've even sold a couple of prints. I'm assuming comics like about the breakup. The comics that we're seeing here, or similar to that. Yeah. Okay. I really enjoy that I can check and see through the walls that I'm done, that like I can go back to the artist board. So, Jesus, it's like I haven't been paying a lot of attention to the framing of the comic, but just in these four, right? Like, let's just take these four as they are, and look at how they are designed and framed. First of all, we haven't talked about the use of color. It's pretty obvious that the primary characters are two different shades of blue and everything else is uncolored. I think that's just kind of whatever. That's nice. It's neat. There's not like, it's not overwhelming in its color. It's also like it goes with this blue theme, the tone of things being blue. The idea of single point perspective, right? If you look at the three panels to the right, ignoring the first one, they're all flat. The shapes that you see in them are all like rectangles or triangles. They're all like geometrically flat shapes. It's as though you had a camera that was shooting a scene against a wall, just a big flat wall. As opposed to that first panel, where it's not super strong because it's really just the table, but you get a sense of perspective from the table. You get this sense that like this is a deeper space than all of the other spaces. Between panels 3 and 4, you get a sense of like one of them is further away than the other, but they're both still flat. In fact, arguably that last panel is even flatter than the first one because there are more rectangles, there are more flat shape cues for you to sort of like see and look at and understand as being this is a wall. That first panel is all about depth. It's all about like this shot down a table. It gives a sense of something being really far away from the camera, from the viewer, and there's a really interesting distancing to it between that and the Madison like looking down at her food in a way that just feels like she's studiously not looking at you. I find that really, really fabulously done. Anyway, I like these comics. I like this one especially, I think. We never made a big deal out of Valentine's Day, but this year a silent agreement led to a special night. We needed an excuse to be romantic. Madison had insisted on cooking. She always found cooking tedious. The candlelight cast shadows across her face as she ate. She looked pretty, her makeup meticulous, clothes carefully curated. At the time, the shadows and the makeup turned her into someone unrecognizable, as if a stranger sat in my girlfriend's chair. "Hey, Madison." She looked up at me and choked on her pasta at the sight of my spaghetti mustache. That was a good reveal. I like that. We went out for hot chocolate after dinner. I wiped whipped cream from the tip of her nose, then kissed her on the cheek. She smiled. "These look like paintings I'd see in my mother's bathroom." Well, what can you expect from coffee house art? Coffee house art? Oh, I'm not going to be able to read that. Yeah. Sorry, guys, I'm at a bad resolution for reading that text. I cleared my throat, then forced a weak laugh. I could feel the hot chocolate burning through the mug as my grip tightened. Your hobbyist boyfriend is hanging some panels here next week, right? That's the kind of tension that I felt like was starting to be introduced in their initial meeting scene. What was the text here? Mary and William, they're an adorable couple. Oh, I want someone to grow old with. God damn it, Nick. Okay, I don't know if I can go in another door. This is my door. Oh, all the doors are closed. All the doors that used to be open are closed. I'm gonna go back over here because this door is open. Mary and William, adorable old couple. This was our place. I miss it. No, can't go in here. Okay, because of my earlier crash, I didn't get the fade to credits that I was supposed to get. But imagine, if you will, a fade to credits. Okay, cool, sweet. I'm gonna close this. Oh, I should have done this first. There we go. So, is there a good question? Panel you couldn't read was disparaging towards the art in the coffee house, painted by hobbyists and loungers, no skills, no talent, etc. Yeah, I figured it was something like that. I probably should have just paraphrased it. Question for Sean. Does the game work better as first person, or would third person add anything? Just thinking about the state of the segment where you talk about controls being heavy reminded me of controlling Sleepy Sarah at the start of The Last of Us, which I felt worked really well. I had forgotten that about The Last of Us, that there was a control difference with the character at the beginning. Great question about the choice to use first person or third person. This is a fundamental question in video games, in designing video games, and there are a lot of different things that I think you can get out of one versus the other. Obviously, depending on the game, sometimes the mechanics really force you into one mode or another. If you're playing like a really accurate shooter, then it helps a lot to be in first person. If you're playing a cover-based shooter, then it helps a lot to be in third person. But other games have a little bit more flexibility. So thinking about, for example, Papoyo, which was a third-person game, that had a similar sort of pacing to it. It was a puzzle game, and this is not a puzzle game, but it was a game about sort of, I don't know why it comes to mind. It's because it was much faster paced, actually, but it was also didn't have the like tension of it felt like a slower paced game. It felt like a more thoughtful game. I think that's it. But it was third person, and this is first person. So, oh God, reasons that you might do first person. One is just very, very simply production focused. It can be a lot easier to create a camera than to create a like a camera that feels good, that feels natural. Natural meaning that it feels unobtrusive enough that the player doesn't notice it specifically, or doesn't object to it at least. Then it can be to create a character that you're going to be staring at from the back for the entire game. Then you need not only a model that's extremely convincing, but also a set of animations that are like really natural feeling. So just from a like production standpoint, I think there can be reasons to go first person versus third person. Now, that's the worst reason for me to go to first. So from a design standpoint, why would you go first person versus third person? Okay. Part of it, I think, comes down to, I'm just going to relate everything to my thesis, because that's what I always do. Part of it comes down to this idea of the difference between objective and subjective storytelling. And objective and subjective storytelling are terms coined, I believe, by BioShock, by somebody from, not BioShock, from BioWare, talking about their games. But they're terms that I really have latched onto, and I really sort of like thinking about things in terms of. Objective storytelling is when you are playing a game and there is a character who is not you, who is somebody that, like a movie, like you're watching a movie, you're supposed to connect to emotionally but sympathetically. Yeah, so the BioWare sort of context for this is that a game like Mass Effect is objective storytelling. It is the story of Commander Shepard, who is a person with a history who things happen to, and you play her. It's always going to be her. You play Commander Shepard, but there's a separation between you and her. And your story and her story, as opposed to Dragon Age Origins, where that is what's considered subjective storytelling, or they think of as subjective storytelling, where there isn't so much a well-defined protagonist character. You are meant to define the protagonist character. You're meant to infuse that character with more of yourself. And so you get additional design decisions to support this. Like, for example, like what? Okay, so the big one is how the conversation engines work. In Dragon Age Origins, you are given the line of dialogue that your character is going to say, and then you choose that, and it is not voiced. So essentially, you as the player are literally reading the dialogue that the character says, and that's the only reading of that dialogue that happens in the game. You are in charge of projecting that dialogue into the character. And then other characters in the game will respond to it. As opposed to the first Mass Effect game, where they developed this whole engine around this idea around simplifying the dialogue and giving you a phrase rather than the entire line of dialogue, and then having you select a phrase and then having the character actually speak the line, which is a much more cinematic sort of way of doing it. And it creates this separation between the player and the character. That's where the Dragon Age and Mass Effect example stops, because they're both third-person games. But first person versus third person is another way of sort of picking one of those two ways of storytelling and supporting it. And I think Apartment is trying to, in a lot of ways, minimize the space between the player and the character. They want you to actually embody the character. This isn't really Nick's story that you're like hearing about. Obviously, in some ways it is, right? Nick is a well-defined character who has a history, and the history is being conveyed to you. But at the same time, the game wants you to feel Nick's feelings. It doesn't want you to just be sympathetic to him. It wants to actually evoke those feelings. And I think we see this especially in the vignettes, where the vignettes are, right, not especially about Nick, they're about other people, but the vignettes take on new mechanics. They use different mechanics in order to really, I keep thinking about that first one, right, with the typing. I love that little game, and I love how frustrated I get at, you know, my husband, who is interrupting me when I just want to write. And I feel like the character. I don't just feel sympathetic towards her. I don't just say, yes, I understand how that would be frustrating. I actually feel frustrated. In the same way, I don't just feel sympathetic towards Nick, although I do. I mean, he's presented kind of as a pathetic character, somebody that you can feel sympathy towards. But I also very much relate to the feeling of walking through a space and seeing an object that reminds me of a specific moment that is painful in the context of a breakup. Like that's not just, wow, that would suck. That's like, I feel that. I know what that feels like, and it hits me. I feel the same thing as Nick. I'm projected much more strongly into him than if this was just sort of like a story about some other character. And so I think the choice of being first person as opposed to third person is largely about trying to, where possible, erase that separation between the player and the character and bring them closer together. And it's just supporting the experience of feeling emotions rather than feeling sympathy. Yeah. All right. Cool. Thanks, guys. This was great. Apartment was fantastic. I am going to take a short break now. What time is it? Whatever. I feel like playing more games. I'm going to take a short break now and come back and play a little bit of Shelter. And I don't know. Shelter, I think, is only like an hour long, so I might be able to play through the whole thing. Before I go here, do not forget, if you found Apartment interesting, check out their Kickstarter. Just go to Kickstarter and search for Apartment, or come to my Twitter, and I have been tweeting about it. I will tweet more about it. I'll give you a link. It's a really cool game. There's a couple more vignettes. And then the vignettes go further. As you could see, like, there were more doors inside of those rooms. If you're interested in it, I think it's a super cool project. Check it out. Play the demo yourself. Yeah, that's all I'll say. Yeah, cool, awesome. I will be back in just a minute, and we'll try out Shelter. All right, see ya.